Welcome to This Day in His Story, created by American Heritage Worldwide. A reminder that every day holds something new to learn. Did you know that Dr. Joseph Warren was a gifted physician and the youngest graduate of Harvard who cared for prominent patients while becoming a powerful voice for liberty in Boston? Learn how Dr. Warren helped write the Suffolk Resolves to oppose unfair British laws and encouraged colonists to unite, boycott British goods, and defend their rights. Discover that Warren sent Paul Revere and William Dawes on their famous midnight ride to warn that the British were coming. And when he had just been appointed as a general, Warren chose to fight as an ordinary soldier at the Battle of Bunker Hill, where he was killed when only 34 years old.
Imagine taking the pulse of a British general with one hand, looking him dead in the eye with this perfect, comforting bedside manner, and then secretly stealing his military plans with the other hand.
Yeah, which is just wild to think about.
Right. But today, we are looking at a man who did exactly that.
Right.
So welcome to today's deep dive. We are exploring this really fascinating stack of historical documents today.
We've got a lot of good stuff.
We really do. We've got biographical excerpts from a text called Joseph Warren, the Physician General of the American Revolution. We've got historical records from Britannica on the intolerable acts. And to kind of cap it all off, we even have a bit of poetry and theology.
It's definitely an eclectic mix of sources, but I mean, they all converge on this one incredibly complex, just almost contradictory individual.
Exactly. So we are celebrating the 250th anniversary of the life of Dr. Joseph Warren, and he's often called the Forgotten Patriot.
Which is a very fitting title, honestly.
It is. And our mission for this deep dive is to uncover how this prominent, really wealthy Boston physician essentially engineered the start of the American Revolution.
Right.
And he did it completely from the shadows.
Yeah, the mastermind behind the curtain.
Right. So I want you listening to think about your own day-to-day life for a second. Have you ever felt like completely overwhelmed just juggling your job and your family?
Oh, definitely. All the time.
Right. Now imagine running the absolute most elite medical practice in your city, treating the most powerful political figures while simultaneously running an underground espionage ring that is, actively trying to start a war.
And doing it all under the constant, very real threat of the gallows. I mean, it's a staggering amount of pressure.
It's massive.
Because when you look closely at the mechanics of how the American Revolution actually began, you don't just find philosophers debating in these nice sunlit rooms.
Right. It wasn't just guys in wigs writing essays.
Exactly. You find people operating deep in the dirt, making it incredibly dangerous and, frankly, morally complicated choices.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the gap between trusted local doctor and mastermind of a violent revolution is massive. I mean, how does someone even cross that bridge?
Well, it really starts with a prodigy who, on a fundamental level, just isn't afraid to operate outside the rules.
Okay.
So Joseph Warren was born on June 11th, 1741, and his childhood was, well, it was anything but typical. He started studying medicine in Boston at the age of 14.
Wait, 14?
14 years old, yeah.
Just to put that in perspective for you listening, when most of us were 14, we were like trying to figure out algebra or how to talk to a crush.
Right, and he is dissecting human anatomy and studying to be a physician.
That's insane.
It is. And by 1759, he becomes the youngest graduate of Harvard.
Okay, so my initial thought here is he's basically an 18th century Doogie Howser.
Exactly.
Like just this textbook, straight-laced boy genius who does everything perfectly.
You'd really think so, right. But he wasn't just sitting quietly in the back of the lecture hall taking notes. No, he was intensely theatrical and deeply political from a very young age. There's this fantastic detail in the documents about his time at Harvard.
Okay, what did he do?
Inside his dormitory, he would passionately perform the role of Cato, the famous Roman statesman, and he'd do it dressed in a flowing white Roman toga.
A toga. In the middle of 18th century Massachusetts, that has to be more than just like a quirky fashion choice, right?
Oh, absolutely. That toga was considered a highly potent symbol of democracy and anti-tyranny.
Oh, wow. So he's making a statement.
Exactly. So even as a teenager, he is publicly, theatrically aligning himself with the classical ideals of a free republic. He is broadcasting his worldview to everyone.
You're not hiding it at all.
Not even a little. And he carries that immense charisma straight into his medical career. I mean, he quickly becomes one of Boston's most prominent and valued physicians.
Like top of the top.
We're talking about a man who treats the absolute elite. He was the personal doctor for John Adams and his son, John Quincy Adams.
Okay, but I want to push back on this image of the polished high society doctor for a second.
Sure.
Because if he's going to become a spy and a revolutionary, he has to have a darker, more rebellious streak, right? Was he really just this pristine healer the whole time?
Well, what's fascinating here is that his rebellious streak was actually a core requirement of his medical training.
Wait, what do you mean?
The sources highlight that Warren was very likely a member of a clandestine group called the Spunkers.
The Spunkers. I have to say that sounds like a terrible 1970s punk rock band.
It really does,
Yeah.
but the reality is much darker than that.
Okay.
The Spunkers were a secret society of Harvard medical students who went out in the dead of night and raided graves, jails, and poorhouses to find bodies for medical dissection.
Wow, okay. So basically, to learn how to heal people, to become this esteemed doctor, he had to literally become a grave robber.
Precisely. And think about the psychology required to do that.
It's intense.
It is.
Hey.
This is a man who developed a very early willingness to operate completely outside the law.
Right, because grave robbing is obviously super illegal.
Very illegal. But he was comfortable doing something deeply taboo, deeply illegal, for what he perceived as a higher purpose.
Which in this case was advancing medical knowledge to save lives.
Exactly. And that psychological framework perfectly foreshadows his later treasonous activities. I mean, he learned early on how to be comfortable in the dark and how to break the rules if he believed his cause was just.
Wow. And that early comfort with the shadows, it just translates beautifully into his adult career. Because as a top-tier doctor in Boston, his elite reputation gave him direct, unfiltered access to prominent loyalist patients.
Right.
He is literally treating British military officials and their families.
And this is exactly where the medical practice and the espionage begin to overlap. He used his incredible access to spy on the British from the inside.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Think about the duality of his life for a second. We're not talking about a guy just, overhearing gossip at a pub.
No, not at all.
He is a doctor. He is in the private bedrooms of the British elite. To put yourself in his shoes, imagine you are Dr. Warren.
Okay.
A British officer is sitting on your exam table, complaining about a fever. His guard is completely down, and he casually mentions where his troops are moving next week.
Right, because you're just the doctor.
Exactly. One wrong look, one gasp, and Warren hangs for treason. He had to be the ultimate actor.
A doctor is a trusted healer. It is literally the perfect cover. People let their guard down around their physician, they confess things, they complain about colonial governors, they reveal logistical plans.
Even you don't hide things from your doctor.
Right. And Warren perfectly compartmentalized his life to gather this intelligence, but he didn't just hoard the information, obviously. He had to distribute it.
Which brings us to his other extracurricular activities.
Yes. The sources note he was simultaneously a Masonic Grand Master of the St. Andrew's Lodge of Freemasons.
Wait, let's dig into that. Because I think a lot of people today hear Freemasons and just picture, like, guys in funny hats doing charity work.
Sure.
But in the 1700s, this was a highly organized secret society, right?
Oh, extremely. A Masonic Lodge wasn't just a social club back then. It was an oath-bound fraternity with coded language, secret handshakes, and absolute loyalty to each other.
Oh.
It was the absolute perfect pre-existing cover for a treasonous rebel cell to operate right under the noses of the British military.
So he's not just a Doogie Howser figure. He's more like a modern-day cybersecurity CEO who moonlights as an underground hacker.
That is a much better analogy, actually. And his operations had a physical home base, too. He presided over meetings at the Green Dragon Tavern.
The Green Dragon?
Yeah, and the Green Dragon wasn't just a place to get a pint of ale. It was the clandestine meeting place for the Sons of Liberty.
Right.
Daniel Webster actually famously dubs this specific tavern the headquarters of the revolution.
So I want to build on that hacker analogy for a second.
Go for it.
If the Green Dragon Tavern is the headquarters, Warren isn't just a spy. He is the central nervous system of the entire rebellion.
I like that.
He doesn't just sense the British movements by taking their pulses. He processes that intelligence in the tavern and then sends the electrical impulses out to the muscles of the rebellion to make the body react.
That is exactly how he functioned. But, sensing danger and plotting in a tavern is one thing.
Right. You're just talking at that point.
Exactly. You still have plausible deniability. The monumental shift happens when Warren decides to openly risk the gallows by putting his treason down on paper.
And the catalyst for that was the intolerable acts.
Yes.
And I feel like the intolerable acts often get glossed over in history class as just, like, some unfair taxes.
Oh, it was so much more than taxing.
Right. Looking at the sources, this wasn't just about money. This was a psychological and physical chokehold on the colonies, and specifically on Massachusetts.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the British government realized that Boston was the heart of the rebellion, and they decided to just brutally crush it.
Make an example of them.
Exactly. The sources give us a precise cascade of these acts in the spring and summer of 1774. It is just blow after blow.
Let's look at the mechanisms of these acts, because it really explains why a prominent doctor would risk absolutely everything to fight back.
Yeah, let's walk through them.
On May 20, 1774, the British passed the Massachusetts Government Act. Suddenly, all elected government officials are wiped out and replaced by royal appointees. Your vote, your local voice, just vanished overnight.
And on that exact same day, they passed the Administration of Justice Act, which moved all legal trials for British officials back to Britain.
Which George Washington literally called the Murder Act.
And for good reason.
Think about how that practically works. If a British soldier shoots your neighbor in the street in Boston, the trial happens an ocean away in London.
Right.
Who in colonial America can afford to leave their farm or their business, buy a ship ticket across the Atlantic, and testify against a soldier?
Nobody. It's impossible.
Nobody. The British were essentially granting their military a license to kill with impunity.
It was a logistical impossibility designed entirely to protect British forces from colonial justice.
Unbelievable.
And then just a couple of weeks later, on June 1st, they passed the Boston Port Act. The entire port of Boston is closed until the East India Company is repaid for the destroyed tea.
Which means they aren't just taxing the city, they're physically starving it.
Yes.
Boston survives on maritime trade. Shutting down the port means no food, no supplies, no income.
And the very next day, June 2, the Quartering Act is passed.
Okay, this is the one that blows my mind.
Right, because British soldiers are now legally allowed to commandeer and live inside the private property of American colonists.
We talk about Warren plotting a rebellion. How terrifying is it to plot anything when the Quartering Act means an armed British soldier could literally be sleeping in your parlor and eating your food?
Yeah, it is a total surveillance state inside your own home.
It's horrifying.
And finally, on June 22, the Quebec Act expands Quebec's boundaries and removes the Protestant faith from the Oath of Allegiance.
Which deeply threatened the religious and territorial identity of the New Englanders.
Absolutely. So these intolerable acts, they were designed to utterly break the spirit of Massachusetts, to isolate them and terrify them into submission.
But it backfired.
Completely. Instead, it gave Warren the perfect ammunition to unite the colonies. In September of 1774, in direct response to this onslaught, Warren authored the Suffolk Resolves.
And this document is a complete rejection of British authority.
Oh, entirely.
The Suffolk Resolves didn't just complain. It was literally an instruction manual for rebellion. It urged Massachusetts to establish a free state, to form local armed militias, and to completely boycott British imported goods.
Yeah, he didn't hold back.
It flat out instructed citizens to refuse to show loyalty to a king who had stripped them of their rights.
It was incredibly radical. But these resolves, which came out of those secret protest meetings in Suffolk County, resonated so deeply that they were rushed to Philadelphia and officially endorsed by the Continental Congress on September 17, 1774.
Which brings up a massive moral paradox that we have to talk about.
Okay.
Dr. Joseph Warren took an oath to save lives. He is a healer. Yet he is deliberately drafting documents and forming militias that he knows will lead to a bloodbath.
Yeah, that's true.
He is physically engineering a war. How does a sworn medical doctor justify becoming a killer?
It is the ultimate paradox of his life, but you have to view it through his specific lens.
Okay, how did he see it?
To Warren, the British occupation and the stripping of their liberties wasn't just a political disagreement. It was a terminal disease infecting the colonies.
Ah, I see.
And as a surgeon, he knew that sometimes to save the life of the patient, you have to perform a brutal, bloody amputation. Revolution was the surgery required to save the concept of liberty.
Wow. And he didn't just prescribe the surgery, he held the scalpel.
He really did.
Because fast forward to April 18, 1775, all of that intelligence gathering, all that pulse-taking and tavern whispering pays off.
The defining moment.
Warren discovers that British troops are preparing to cross the Charles River to march on Lexington.
Right. He processed the intelligence before the British could even execute their plan.
And it was Warren who dispatched Paul Revere and William Dawes on their famous midnight ride into the countryside to warn the Patriots.
Exactly.
We all grew up learning about Paul Revere, right?
Yeah.
But Warren's the guy who actually pointed him in the right direction and said, go.
He was the boss.
Yeah. But Warren doesn't just send other people into danger. When the fighting starts at Lexington and Concord, he physically rides out and fights in the battles himself.
He does. And his leadership is so undeniable that before the Battle of Bunker Hill, he is officially commissioned as a major general in the Massachusetts militia.
So he was at the absolute top of the command structure.
Literally at the top.
But then he makes a choice that honestly defies logic. With a commission as a major general in his hand, which means he could safely sit on a hill a mile away and direct troops, he declines the command.
Right.
He chooses instead to serve as a private soldier. He walks into the dirt and the mud on the front lines.
Yeah, he wouldn't lead from the rear.
And tragically, it's there, during the Battle of Bunker Hill on June 17, 1775, that Warren is killed in hand-to-hand combat. He was only 34 years old.
He died fighting in the dirt alongside the everyday men he had inspired. And the tragedy of his death compounds when you look at his family.
Oh, it's heartbreaking.
His wife had passed away 2 years prior in 1773, so his death at Bunker Hill left his 4 children completely orphaned.
And here's where the history takes a twist that feels like, honestly, a Hollywood script.
It really does.
The man who stepped up to ensure the welfare of Warren's orphaned children, who gave $500 for their education and actively petitioned Congress to take care of them, was General Benedict Arnold.
Yeah.
Wait, let's pause. We have to dig into this. Benedict Arnold, the man universally known as the ultimate American traitor, is the one saving the ultimate American hero's kids. Why would Arnold care?
History is so much more complicated than the statues suggest, you know.
Clearly.
At that time, in 1775, Arnold was a fiercely dedicated commander fighting for the Patriot cause. He and Warren shared brotherhood.
Oh, because they were both in the thick of it.
Exactly. They were both frontline fighters who believed deeply in the cause. Arnold deeply respected Warren's ultimate boots-on-the-ground sacrifice.
Which makes sense.
Because Warren had every excuse to stay safe. He was wealthy, he was an elite doctor, he was a widower with 4 young kids, and he was a commissioned general.
He didn't have to be in the mud.
But his convictions demanded that he share the exact same risks as the poorest militiaman.
So how do we even begin to measure the impact of a life that was so monumental but ended so abruptly?
It's tough.
I mean, he is the Forgotten Patriot because he died before the Declaration of Independence was even signed. He never saw the country he engineered.
To answer that, the sources we're analyzing make a really poignant literary connection.
Oh.
Yeah, they connect Warren's life to a piece of poetry by Edna St. Vincent Millay titled First Fig.
I love that poem.
It goes, "My candle burns at both ends. It will not last the night. But my foes and my friends, it gives a lovely light."
It's a perfect encapsulation of him. He was burning at both ends from the moment he was a 14-year-old medical student robbing graves.
Exactly. And this raises an important question for you listening. What happens when you light both ends of a candle?
It burns out fast.
Right. It burns incredibly bright with a furious energy, but it consumes itself in half the time. That was Joseph Warren. But the sources actually take this metaphor a step further, transitioning from poetry to theology.
Okay, how so?
They quote Elder Neil L. Anderson from a talk titled, "Faith is not by chance, but by choice." He states, "Faith in Jesus Christ is a gift from heaven that comes as we choose to believe and as we seek it and hold on to it."
Oh, I see. It's about the mechanics of belief. It requires active choices.
Exactly.
The sources are asking you directly, what choices do you make to strengthen your faith? How is your passion or your faith like a burning candle?
Right. It's about action.
Because when I look at Warren, his faith in the concept of a free America was never passive. It was a deliberate, incredibly dangerous choice he woke up and made every single day.
Stealing bodies for science. Stealing secrets for liberty.
Writing treasonous resolves under the threat of execution. Running to the front lines. He chose to believe in an idea that didn't exist yet, and he held on to it even at the cost of his life.
He didn't wait for the revolution to happen to him. He chose to be the catalyst. He chose to burn bright.
So what does this all mean? When we look back at the stack of sources we've explored today, it is clear that Dr. Joseph Warren wasn't just a physician who got swept up in the times.
Not at all.
He was the central nervous system of the early revolution. He went from being a 14-year-old theatrical medical prodigy who stole bodies in the dark to a high society doctor playing a lethal game of espionage.
Yeah, he was the grand master utilizing secret societies, the defiant author of the Suffolk Resolves.
And the man who literally sent Paul Revere into the night.
He provided the intelligence, the political framework, and ultimately the physical blood sacrifice required to get a new nation on its feet.
I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder as you go about your day. Think about Warren's incredibly uncompromising nature.
Yeah.
This is a man who refused to lead from the rear, who wrote fiery treason while foreign soldiers occupied his city, who was constantly relentlessly pushing the envelope.
Right.
If he had somehow survived the dirt and blood of Bunker Hill, would his radical, burning at both ends personality have allowed him to become a celebrated, polished founding father like Washington or Adams?
That is a fascinating question.
Right. Or, given his deeply rebellious spirit, would he have inevitably found himself rebelling against the very government he helped create? Think about that the next time you see a pristine marble statue. Maybe a guy like Warren was never meant to be carved in stone. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thank you for listening. Keep exploring. Hand today and to play your part in his story now. For more faith-based learning, visit ahsworldwide.org, the homeschool for faith and family.